Hey everyone, John Giorso with Orca Pacific here. Today I'm excited to have Nich Weinheimer, GM at Kenshoo. We're going to talk all things e-commerce, Amazon, Walmart.com. Welcome to the e-commerce deep dive show. Thanks for being on, Nich.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So to get started, just tell me a little bit about Kenshoo and your role there.
Sure. So Kenshoo is a digital advertising platform. We're about a 13-year-old company. We're an Israeli company, co-headquartered in Tel Aviv and San Francisco. Got our start actually partnering very closely with Google to help them kind of scale up their advertising business back in 2006. Shortly thereafter, as the industry matured, Facebook was one of our biggest clients, and as they were scaling their user acquisition, Facebook was looking to scale up their advertising business. Said, "Hey, Kenshoo, come build a social product." So we obliged and built a social product. 3-4 years ago, some strategic conversations were happening with leadership within Amazon advertising, and we saw kind of the writing on the wall of the expansion of those programs, and I came in as a close design partner to help build out the API ecosystem at Amazon. Sitting here in Seattle and having a background in e-commerce, it was natural for me to come on board right around then, and I've been helping to scale up our, pivoting about about at that point, like 10, 11 years of search enterprise technology towards the Amazon advertising opportunity. So it's been a wild ride since then. We partner with brands and agencies, enabling their scale on these native advertising platforms. And this e-commerce retail advertising is just blowing up, and it's starting to shift who the biggest advertisers are in the world. So pretty excited to talk about it. But that's Kenshoo.
Yeah, awesome. And then I know you've had a pretty interesting career in e-commerce so far. You've done kind of a lot of different things. Can you just go through that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say it's been a solid hybrid between kind of advertising technology, software as a service, and then with a pretty heavy focus in e-com, largely because of where we sit here in Seattle and in our kind of venture-backed market. I got my start actually in display advertising technology. Lots of the execs that I worked with there actually left right around the 2009 2010 timeframe, and actually a few of them went over to Amazon and now are kind of helping to lead the Amazon advertising business as it's scaled.
Sure.
Leaving that company after about 3.5 years of trying to wear as many hats as I could at the startup, I went to actually another venture-backed startup that was focused on integrating retailers and some brands onto the largest marketplaces and product advertising channels. So in those eras, 2011, 2012, everything was very feed oriented.
So this was this primarily focused on the guys reselling other brands or brand owners themselves?
Yeah, so for retailers, a big piece of their customer acquisition process was to see if they could syndicate their product listing ads across as many properties as possible. And at that time, comparison shopping engines were still viable. Google Shopping was free still; it hadn't become a pay-to-play program. And a lot of those retailers, if they weren't, an REI competing with an Amazon, were trying to list their products on marketplaces like Amazon and eBay that still hadn't quite seen sort of the advent of the brand manufacturer coming in and controlling to a great degree.
Sure. It was still kind of wide open at that point in terms of opportunity. If you just had inventory of something, you could probably make a business out of it.
Exactly.
Got it.
So product advertising, customer acquisition at scale, and then of course fishing where the fish are with the marketplaces that had built huge, obviously, customer bases like Amazon or eBay.
Cool. And I know you have done or maybe are still actually operating a 3P brand on Amazon. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So after about 3.5 years with Mercent, wearing a number of different hats as well, I did partner with a couple partners on building out a brand that we wanted to launch on Amazon. We kind of saw that the model was you have to be your own brand to be successful. You couldn't be this retailer amassing 100,000 products in a catalog and survive with the margin squeezes that were happening. So if you were your own brand manufacturer, you controlled your margins, and you could plan on the math that Amazon allows you to plan on as a 3P seller. We modeled it all out. We found a contract manufacturer. I fought with some of the world's largest conglomerates in the health and personal care space for my trademarking, and we launched a brand on Amazon, and we were pretty successful in the first couple of years. Took a lot of learnings as to what we would do. I took a lot of learnings just in trying to launch this in terms of who to partner with. My partners were husband and wife, and went off and had twins and a third kid. So we kind of let the brand kind of
prioritize
priorities.
Sit in the background, and I got back into the software world, which is where I have a lot of passion as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, is it possible to do that today? I mean, is it possible to launch kind of a bootstrapped brand on Amazon today, or has it gotten so competitive and kind of so dominated by the big players that it's hard to enter?
There's some great quips out there, like the riches are in the niches. I would say absolutely yes, it's possible. I think the most creative folks out there are finding ways to do that. To your point about the world's largest brands, you do have to have a war chest. I mean, bootstrapping is one thing. I mean, I was launching in the early days of some of deals, right? Like lightning deals. I could do $15,000 in one day, and as a fledgling brand, that's pretty good. But this day and age, there's with the largest brand manufacturers focusing more and more on these channels, seeing the opportunity there to represent themselves, to invest in advertising. It starts to squeeze out the levers for the little guys to a certain degree. But if you can find $500,000 in funding, you can launch a brand that has a viable path toward a successful exit potentially. We're seeing a lot of these brands. I talked to some brokers out there that are valuing some of these smaller brands. If you can get to $1 million in revenue top line, they're paying 2x. So if you can break even on your business operations, you can clear $1 million in selling your brand.
Do that in a couple years and spin it off, and that's not a bad gig at all. So I know we were talking before the show a little bit about this dynamic of kind of what is important about a brand. Like, what does a brand get you? When I say brand, I mean like national brand on the Amazon platform. What is it not? Who are the competitors? I think one of the rude awakenings that a lot of national brands have gone through over the last couple of years as e-commerce has really gotten to scale is that their brand in and of itself maybe wasn't as important as they thought. Now, that doesn't mean it's not important at all and that it can't be leveraged in the right way, but just having a commoditized product and sticking a national brand on it when you have competitors who have a retail that's half and 5,000 5-star reviews and everything else probably isn't going to cut it. In my opinion, one of the biggest factors in creating that dynamic has been kind of the massive amount of Chinese direct new, I don't even want to say disruptor brand necessarily, because some of them frankly are not very innovative, they're just cheap, but basically new entrants, Chinese run companies, Chinese import brands. At this point, I mean, from what we see, if you can go into any category virtually where it's fairly easy to enter from a manufacturing standpoint, there's not a lot of IP or R&D or anything required, you're going to have like hundreds of these entrants. But just what are your thoughts on that dynamic overall?
I don't have a PhD in marketing. I know there's a ton of really amazing thinking going on just about branding in general and the value of a brand. I mean, the early days of brands, it had more to do with customer trust than anything else. I mean, you weren't going to die if you ate our consumable.
Sure. When there was less regulation.
If you put this on your skin, you weren't going to like turn green or something. So you look at like the history of those brands, and you kind of, there's a ton of folks that do studies of like, why is it that you buy the Reynolds wrap versus the alternative Kroger brand or something like that, right? So that I'll try not to comment on, but as you start looking at these platforms like Amazon that have democratized the shelf to a degree, the infinite shelf for that matter, and then provided digital shopper marketing tools that again democratize your access to these quote buyers of your products and how you get marketed. Right? If you go into a grocery store, it's going to be very difficult for you and I to launch our shrink wrap brand and call up and get the scale and get the position at the eye level on the shelf that that Reynolds would have. Right? That's not the case with Amazon. And in fact, Amazon and other online channels have given the tools to some of these upstart brands to basically be faster and more innovative and take share and take position over some of the world's largest household brands. And then it's also, I think, a generational thing. We've seen some data, and I've been in specifically in this advertising space for a long time, that the up and coming generations care less about some of that brand affinity, especially as they're shopping. The number one most popular app for amongst the the millennials is the Amazon app on their phone for shopping. If reviews are good and price is good, they're more willing to try something else if it's within of course the first page of the results.
Because they trust the platform, they trust Amazon, it kind of makes the trust in the brand less important in some way, right? Because because when you look at these kind of surveys of trust in brands or affinity of brands, Amazon is above virtually every other consumer product brand. Amazon is above them. So
you could say that, I know that there's a lot of discussion about, Amazon's own white label products,
Sure.
et cetera,
Yeah.
their private label, products. In some senses, these up and coming, you could call it the China Direct brands, which is a huge portion of them. Those are Amazon. That's the
same
that's
thing,
the Spartan
right?
brand,
Yeah,
right? From the grocery store, regardless if they own it or not.
Yeah, people always talk about Amazon Basics. We have to be worried about Amazon Basics. Okay, take a given category. There may be 2 or 3 or 5 Amazon Basics SKUs because they have to be really high volume. They're frankly slower to move than the marketplace. But then you have 5,000 SKUs from all these Chinese entrants. That's the real private label on Amazon, in my opinion.
Right.
So yeah, totally agree. So what do big national brands do about this? Do they just outspend on advertising?
Well, when you're a little maybe perceived as slower in the space, for example, you're not
fair.
coming up and innovating in a channel like Amazon.
Yep.
You do have the benefit of 100 years in some cases for these guys
Sure.
of building up their ability to spend at scale, to have coffers for brand marketing. We're still in that space, in those largest fast-moving consumer goods brand manufacturers. They are still so heavily under-investing in digital advertising.
Yeah.
On some of these channels. They're still heavy in TV and print and other linear channels out there that they need to come back and they're showing that they are into these channels like Amazon and start to try to throw their weight around with the fact that they have those coffers to spend on these channels. You look at it like a China Direct model, their costs are so low, right? They are the manufacturer and they've been given these tool sets to go and scale spreading their inventory across the globe basically through Amazon's muscle, but they've got the margins to invest. So if you're looking at it as like, on one side you have the brand dollars that can be dumped onto the fire, on the other side you have the marginal, dollars that can be spent to where if they break even on launching a new product, and maybe cost them, 2% of their cost of sale to build the product, they've got a ton of margin to win. So you have a bit of a dogfight happening. But again, then you start looking at the softer stuff of the consumer, like where does brand trust coming from? You start looking at grocery. You still have that same, consumer on the backside that's like, I'm Reynolds, I trust that. Like I don't know this other brand over here.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think, in my opinion, like outspending is not going to just be enough. That may have to be part of it, or at least kind of keeping up with what these other guys are willing to spend, but. You also still have to play to your strengths. You have to be, as an American brand, with American overhead, you're never going to be able to compete on price with a Chinese import brand. So you have to compete on something else. And to me, I think what U.S. companies are really good at is innovating and developing IP and building a brand around those truly kind of innovative features. And if brands can continue to do that and play to that strength, I think they win ultimately. But you can't just say we have this commoditized widget and we're going to compete. It's not going to work. Just like it wouldn't work in a traditional retailer against their private label brand.
No, exactly.
So
and you see in some cities in China, driving down the street, some of the biggest manufacturing centers in China, all the billboards are, let us help you build your brand, right?
Yeah.
Because they can manufacture to the nth degree, but can they tell a meaningful story to the consumer? Do they understand the consumer to the degree that, again, the PhDs in marketing that have been focused on how do I communicate with my customer? How does my product get experienced? You look at some of the best product developers like an Apple, that's a true experience. They really are creating that experience that is more than the product itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think what's exciting to me, knowing that this kind of we've set the stage for this now in terms of, okay, you have to build a brand in general, but also on Amazon to kind of really survive and thrive. What's interesting to me is I think Amazon and some of the things we've seen, they're really leaning into this, and they're creating now more opportunities to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 5 years ago, you didn't really have advertising. You didn't have a brand store. You had content, but
like A+ content.
Exactly. Most of the stuff that you can do today didn't exist.
Right.
So it was very deliberate that this was built out. And I think we're going to see more coming out, which is exciting because for the more forward-thinking, aggressive, U.S. national brands, I think there's going to be more opportunities to differentiate themselves on the Amazon platform versus some of these kind of white label guys.
Or take a page out of their book too. We see, some of these largest brands say if it's not a $2 billion opportunity as a product, then we kill the idea.
Yeah.
But you have very successful, 10, 15, 20, $100 million brands that only leverage digital.
Yep.
And I think a lot of these big brand manufacturing companies are saying, they're getting an ounce of humility and saying, oh, maybe we should launch, 10 $100 million brands.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, $10 million brands that become $100 million brands is your $1 billion opportunity. But if you're not willing to do that, you're forced into acquisitions. You just have to wait till they get big enough and then buy them.
Right.
And that's not sustainable, in my opinion.
Well, then you're paying me that multiplier that I'm looking for
Absolutely.
on my startup.
Of course,
so,
yeah. I mean, it's just like that's what most of them are doing right now. You see these really high multiples. They're going out and buying all these disruptor brands. And, I mean, that is not ideal. I just don't think that's sustainable. They have to figure out a way to invent this stuff in-house and grow it in-house organically. So pivoting a little bit, I know so far we focused mostly on Amazon, but you guys have a new partnership with Walmart, right?
Yep.
You want to kind of tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to, you live in the Amazon world, you talk to all the players in the space. It's easy to think Amazon is the gorilla. It's, and you start looking at the numbers and you realize how enormous Walmart is.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah.
Twice the size as a retailer of Amazon. Certainly, if you look at just e-commerce to e-commerce, there's still kind of an order of magnitude difference. Walmart's story, if you look at the, I think they were sharing us data, it's like 160 million shoppers shop weekly at Walmart. 90% of American consumers are within 10 miles of a Walmart store. Wow. You look at their grocery footprint, one of the world's largest grocers. Sure. You see the wars that are happening on like the innovation in grocery, Amazon Fresh, the Whole Foods acquisition.
Yeah.
So Walmart, a little bit of background, they had a media offering, to be able for their .com, their digital properties that they'd been outsourcing to a partner. And over the last couple of years, they've kind of flipped that and insourced their whole media operations to where kind of answering what Amazon has from an Amazon advertising perspective, being having all these brand manufacturers trained to want control and transparency and activating their media dollars. Walmart said, we're going to build the Walmart Media Group. It's going to be, that kind of a good sister to the, the Walmart Labs that had largely been the underpinnings of kind of their new e-commerce initiatives and so forth. And with that physical footprint and that grocery prowess that they have to pair their .com and, especially their online grocery pickup, with some true advertising offerings, gives them a real leg to stand on, even if they are maybe 10% of the size of Amazon's e-com business.
So, I mean, is it basically a copy of sponsored ads, or is it different in any significant ways in terms of the way that this
I mean, on the surface it's sponsored products in search results and on product detail pages.
And so by the way, AMS or sponsored ads was basically a copy of AdWords, so it's not like Amazon invented this concept. But
I mean, there's differences even with Google and Amazon.
Sure,
Google's a feed-based program. Amazon, it's more like search, but it's product ads. You know. So in a sense, on Walmart, on the search results page, you get sponsored product listings that you would see on the page.
It's keyword based, CPC based, same basic.
They even have concept. A leaderboard ad unit that's that they have available. Their brand amplifier. They've got, they acquired Polymorph Labs to build out their display infrastructure so they can they can scale a network across their properties.
And is that up and running, the display piece right now, or is it just kind of on the search side?
So they have offerings, yes, that they can run display inventory on their site. Now, there's caveats here in all of this as to a partner like us who partners with these channels through an open API ecosystem. So we're plugging in the computers on the back end, right, and activating. There's limitations as to what's you can activate today in sort of a self-serve model.
Got it.
With
Okay.
Walmart.
So it's still kind of a manual
There's
and
still,
self-serve
yeah.
hybrid.
Some of it's going to be
depending on what you're
activated by Walmart still
Yeah,
for those
got it.
brands. In other cases, they're starting to scale up what's self-serve, and
Well,
even
that's-
Amazon's.
I was
going to
say that's
right
even
now.
the case with Amazon. There's
Right.
still any of the more kind of customized creative stuff still has to be run through Amazon advertising.
Exactly.
So sure.
In terms of major differentiation,
Yeah.
though, I would say, and I kind of touched on it right out of the gate, is their ability to tie your digital advertising investment into offline attribution. So understanding if I advertise this product on the Walmart.com, and right now, just for some clarity, there's Walmart.com experience, and then there's the grocery experience. They're two different apps.
Okay.
So you have they call it Orange for grocery.
Yep.
They're merging those into one property.
Okay.
Going into
Makes sense.
soon in this year.
Sure.
And if you really look at the opportunity, it's in their grocery business, because I mean, so many more
Yeah.
of your demographic swaths are starting to shop at Walmart now
Yeah.
that there's online grocery pickup.
Yep.
That before you might not have seen. So we're starting to see a more affluent shopper in the Walmart grocery experience.
Okay.
And again, with being within 10 miles, 90% of America within
Yeah.
10 miles of
Yeah.
Walmart, that's a pretty powerful
Absolutely.
value prop. And
Yeah.
if I'm a brand investing on digital and I can tell all the way down to the physical shopper, the attribution there, I'm going to invest probably more than the relative share I would comparing the size
Sure.
of the e-com businesses
Well,
between
and-
Amazon and Walmart.
And in some ways, from a data perspective, I mean, that's kind of the holy grail in terms of what it means for a brand, is being able to actually connect physical and digital retail. I mean, I think, with Amazon, with the Amazon Go stores, theoretically, they haven't done it yet, but theoretically, if that gets to scale, it would be fairly easy to connect kind of online and offline experiences. But in a way, Walmart's, because they have however many stores, thousands, they're already, if they can figure it out, positioned kind of over Amazon in
They've got those nodes for that kind of self-serve fulfillment that the consumers still want to a degree.
Do customers really want in-store pickup?
Just
from what
I think they want to be just outside the store and pull their car up and have it loaded
but
in.
But do they prefer that over delivery? Because I've always thought, why? Like, why do that if you can have it just delivered? Is it relative to actual cost? Is it that it's just a better deal because you're not paying for the shipping?
Yeah, it could be. There's a couple things I think that could go into it. It could be the challenge with delivery windows. It could be the premiums you have to pay for delivery. I bet it's market by market too, as well. If you look at some of the places like our city, right? It's difficult to get around in our city.
Yeah,
I would rather have someone else on the road dropping it off at my door than me trying to get to any big box store anywhere in this region. But if I live in somewhere more suburban and I have to go and drop my kids off anyway, and I'm on my app waiting for them, then I'm just going to drop by Walmart. They're going to load my trunk, and that way I didn't have to be home for the delivery. I'm a busy person. You don't
have to wait around for the 2-hour window or whatever. That's a great point. I think it's so easy to have to just use kind of your own personal experience as project that onto 300 million American consumers, which is not how everyone else actually lives. So that's a great point. Different when you're in a congested urban area. But
and then you look at we were hearing a lot about the digital innovation too. Even in stores, and there still are. I mean, the lion's share of shopping, especially for grocery, is still happening in store. They're starting to play with things like having you go into the. It's always challenging if there's fog on the frozen aisle and stuff. You're like, how am I going to engage with this brand here?
Yeah.
Well, what if we had, big screens on these that showed you and kind of merchandise products that are in there and showed you promotions or, or these brands could be advertising, hey, it's, you want my peas, sure. And then, so then you can start to connect, some of these digital investments across multiple different properties. Not just, it could be on the screens where they're picking up their goods. It's not just on the mobile experience or on your desktop.
Well, and especially if you have your previous shopping list and that can be projected. I mean, you can get really crazy with how all this could ultimately be.
Or targeting those consumers too, where it's
absolutely.
They buy bacon every week. Like if I'm, Hormel and Oscar Mayer and all these other, I want to make sure that in that cart, if there's an ad unit there, I'll pay a lot to make sure that every time that repeat purchase of Oscar Mayer center cut bacon happens, that Hormel's in there with their ad trying to challenge that. Or if you're Oscar Mayer, you want to protect that space. Just in the same case you do on Amazon, where you have brand terms you protect. And
Sure. And then it goes cross-channel, where then you're shopping online because your week is different and it's easier to have it dropped off or pick up in store or whatever. You're seeing that same ad. That's great. Awesome. So it's kind of a broad question, but do you see any huge changes over the next 12 to 24 months in e-commerce? Like any big, kind of unexpected in terms of how the industry looks at this changes in your opinion?
I do. I mean, I think we've just seen kind of the first, the first wave of brand manufacturers focusing on their retail partners as digital partners, not as just their customers.
Yeah.
In the past, that customer relationship between a brand manufacturer and their retailer was, there's an old history of it, right? I mean, you guys know just as much as anyone else, brokering, between these players. As these brand manufacturers come in and get trained by channels like Amazon on what they can expect or how they could measure their influence on their business on the channel, how they can pull levers that previously they couldn't pull before and control those and measure them. We're talking about it with Amazon and Walmart right now, but the rest of retail,
they're going to catch up.
Is scrambling to catch up, and there are giants that are not Amazon or Google, and Google is to a degree, but that aren't Amazon or Walmart that are super interested in helping. We just saw at NRF, Microsoft's big announcement of, their Bing for Commerce and Promote IQ, which they acquired last year, which Promote IQ is a technology that is powering retailers with the ability to set up their own site monetization, their own advertising ecosystem that they can control, that's transparent for the buying on that platform. You invested X, you got Y in return. And it's taking quite a bit of a transformation inside these retail organizations where you have category owners that are like, whoa, you don't want to come over to my page and put ads on this because I need to hit my targets.
This is my...
What about relevance?
Sure.
So there's shift in thinking and there's shifts in P&L, like inside these category owners. Do I get that advertising against my bottom line? So I think we'll see the rest of retail really step up in a big way and fast over the next few years because they have to maintain relevance. And every one of these big retailers that are sort of the tertiary and beyond after Walmart have their own uniqueness. I mean, like Target really leads in fashion, and Best Buy and consumer electronics. I mean, so you have these kind of niche players that have an opportunity to really be very focused advertising portals for these brand manufacturers.
So basically, these retailers going from just retailers to essentially retailers plus like commerce platforms, whatever you want to call it, but brands seeing them as kind of this more expansive, which I think a lot of brands already understand that about Amazon, that Amazon is not just a retailer. You're not just going to build a good relationship with a buyer, not to undermine how difficult other retail is, but it's just a different ball game. It's not just about convincing them that your product is the best, which is basically what you need to do at Walmart or Target or anybody else, but it's about managing the platform and taking advantage of all these levers and opportunities that exist outside of that kind of direct supplier to merchant relationship.
You start giving these tools to the brand manufacturers, and look, they've been coming up in the digital space with everyone else as it relates to Google and Facebook. Now, do they have an e-com site to go convert? If I'm McCormick, for example, I'm going to send you to a recipe page, or if I'm Wolf, I'm going to send you to a catalog page, and maybe you can go find a retailer. But so they've been doing reach and frequency on Facebook. They're on Google for those reasons. But now I've got all of these different retail sites as my .coms. Which one in any given day, intraday, do I want to potentially send more traffic to? Am I running a promotion? Am I selling better in the Northeast because it's a heat wave right now and I sell fans? Like that data mixed with my ability to drive traffic at scale, potentially from other digital properties, as well as control the advertising on those properties, is going to create a really dynamic marketplace for what I'm kind of calling like the digital shopper marketing levers that these brands are like super excited to wield. Because before it was like, here's kind of blind marketing dollars, retailer, and the retailer would go, okay, we'll spend it and we'll make sure, maybe they bought an end cap or they said, I need to be on this shelf position, but there's giving that level of control to the brand manufacturer. They want to compete. They will beat the crud out of each other, to get those positions. And with the scale that these digital levers give these brands, it's going to be a game changer. And I think it's going to happen fast over the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so basically lots of changes to come. I think some of them have maybe just started, but really are in their infancy in terms of where all this is going. That's awesome.
I'm sure there's more, but that's one of the things that we've been top of mind on at Kenshoo with where we sit in the information flow with retail history within Google and Facebook, and then where we've been with Amazon and now with Walmart. Seeing these worlds come together is it's a fascinating place to be.
Well, and if you can be the glue that holds a lot of this stuff together, that's a good position to be in too. So, so speaking of that, tell our audience how they can find out more about Kenshoo. If they want to connect with you, the best way to go about that.
Yeah, any industry conference you'll probably find me at, any middle seat somewhere over the U.S. and globally. We do operate globally for our ecom business unit across EMEA, APJ, Latin America, obviously North America as well.
Sure.
But yeah, Kenshoo.com, ecom business unit. My name's Nich Weinheimer. You can find me on LinkedIn. There's too many ways to contact anyone these days.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Send up the smoke signal. I'll probably answer it. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, this has been great, Nich. Thanks so much for being on.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.
Yeah. This has been a conversation with Nich Weinheimer from Kenshoo. Thanks to Nich for being on the show. Thanks to everybody for listening. And be sure to subscribe to E-Commerce Deep Dive on your favorite podcast app. Thanks, and we'll talk soon.